After all the talk, all the speculation, the NX has finally been unveiled. Or should I say the Nintendo Switch? The hybrid system's highly modular design and ability to take HD gaming wherever you want seems like it's brought out every Nintendo fan's inner optimist. Its launch in March is a scarce few months away, but it'll be an agonizing wait before we can have it in our hands. Even the wait until mid-January for more details feels like too long. But fortunately, we still have some info to go off, and it's looking very good for Smash. While the lack of a cameo in the debut trailer has some people worried, the things they did show are reason to be excited. Clips of an enhanced port of Mario Kart 8 and either an enhanced port or a sequel to Splatoon means the rumors of such things are true, and an NX, or should I say NS, version of Smash 4 is among those rumors. But there's more than just ports to talk about here. They previewed Splatoon in the midst of an esports match set amidst an arena with a roaring crowd. If you squint a little, there's reason to think Nintendo might be dipping their toes into esports, and there's a new rumor going around that they're planning on doing just that. And wouldn't it just make sense for there to be a new version of their biggest competitive series on their new system for them to support? Yep, looks like all the Smash 4.5 talk really does hold water now. And going forward in this series, we're going to be talking about characters who could have a shot at becoming newcomers in Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo Switch. In fact, our spotlight today is on a character who's had a few bumps in the road as of late, but his recently released game gives him the attention he needs, and his vast moveset potential could do the rest. As they say, the proof is in the paper. Paper Mario is a bit of an odd duck. Existing as a strange, paper-thin incarnation of the main man himself, Paper Mario debuted in the 2000 game of the same name, an RPG that features 2D characters in a 3D world. What started as, presumably, a sneaky way to get around the Nintendo 64's graphical limitations became a full-blown spin-off series, with 4 more entries to date and a role as the focus of a game in one of the other Mario spin-off series. The Paper Mario sub-franchise, for lack of a better term, has proven itself to be pretty damn adaptable. It's had RPGs with platformer elements, a platformer with RPG elements, and a pair of adventure/RPG hybrids where you collect items and objects to use as weapons in battle. The constant state of change has caused controversy at times and drawn the ire of fans who preferred the earlier games, but at the same time, there's something to be said about a series that keeps changing its hat and still manages to have its games be well received, with one exception. And perhaps part of Paper Mario's appeal lies in what stays consistent despite the genre shifts. They offer a picture of the Mario universe in a different light than the main Mario games. They're stranger, quirkier, more willing to push boundaries and do things you'd never have expected. Not to mention how the games are case studies of how to make you bust a gut laughing one moment and then nearly move you to tears the next. Examples of stellar writing and localizations that set a gold standard, with one exception. But more importantly for Smash, Paper Mario has the characteristics we know the developers look for in potential newcomers. He boasts high moveset potential thanks to a massive repertoire of abilities from all the different things he's done in his games, and while Color Splash saw a lot of backlash over the summer, its increasingly favorable reception has more fans looking at Paper Mario favorably again, and it makes him relevant at just the right time. The case for him is signed, sealed, and delivered. So what would Paper Mario be like in Smash? So before we get into the details here, I want to clear up some misconceptions. There's this line of thought going around about how we don't need a third Mario or don't need another Mario clone in Smash. There are several things wrong with this argument. While Paper Mario is technically an alternate incarnation of the main Mario, a character's identity isn't as important as some other things. Some fans seem to have this idea that characters are chosen based on who they are or what series or ideas they represent, and then a moveset is just thrown together after they're already chosen. But no, that isn't how it works, at least not based on what Sakurai has said in articles and interviews. In fact, who a character is and where they're from isn't as important as what they can do. Moveset concepts are an integral part of the selection process, and so being a paper version of Mario isn't a deal breaker as long as he plays different from Mario. And with how much differently you go about doing stuff in Paper Mario games, I can say confidently that it'd make more sense for Paper Mario to not be a clone. And with that out of the way, onto the character himself. Paper Mario's look is a pretty consistent one. The design from the Thousand Year Door has more or less stuck around since, meaning choosing how to have him look isn't a problem at all. When it comes to animating him though, there are two distinct choices. The rigid, minimal frame animations from the first game, Sticker Star and Color Splash, or the more fluid animations from the other two. Either one would work and feel true to character, but personally, I'd go with the more fluid animations to better differentiate Paper Mario from the other two-dimensional fighter. And speaking of 2D, the fact that he and his attacks are made of paper could lead to some really neat visual effects. You know the motion lines and such that show up on characters' attacks to add visual flair and illustrate where the hitboxes are? Paper Mario's could be made of paper streamers and confetti, like the visual effects on his attacks in Color Splash. Finally, Paper Mario's alternate colors could take a few different directions. Maybe they could borrow a few of regular Mario's alts. Or maybe they could reference the L and W emblem badges in the Thousand Year Door by giving them costumes that match the colors of Luigi, Wario, and Waluigi. There's some room to experiment with here. For all the uniqueness that comes with being a being of living paper, Paper Mario is still a version of Mario, so I want that to carry over into his moveset and playstyle somehow, and I think I figured out how. What better way to exemplify the nature of the Paper Mario series as a quirkier counterpart to the main Mario games than by having Paper Mario's playstyle be a quirkier version of Mario's while having his actual moveset be completely different. Like with regular Mario, Paper Mario's kit would be well-rounded and beginner-friendly, with options that let him play both offense and occasionally defense. However, where regular Mario's offense is built more for rushdown, relying on his mobility and fast frame data to get in and overwhelm opponents, Paper Mario would be built to keep opponents guessing. He'd trade a straightforward game plan for one with more mix-ups and a greater reward for catching opponents off guard. So now, how about some stats? Size-wise, he'd be roughly identical in height to Mario, which, makes sense. And that's where the stat similarities stop, with his weight specifically being very different. Being made of paper doesn't offer much help in that regard, making Paper Mario what would be the 5th lightest character currently in the game. Another wrench in things is the fact that his run speed and air speed, while not bad by any means, would both be worse than Mario's. I mean, you don't exactly move around fast in the Paper Mario games in most circumstances. At least his fall speed isn't a detriment. Being kind of floaty helps in some regards and hurts in others, and it's another way he also distances himself from Mr. Game & Watch by falling faster than he does. But he'd also have high gravity, a stat that determines how quickly you reach your maximum rising and falling speed in the air. You know how in the Paper Mario games you rise quickly when you jump, hang in the air a little, then fall back down just as fast? High-ish gravity would sort of mimic that. It'd be like the other high-gravity semi-floaty characters, Palutena, Charizard, and Bowser. Yeah, Bowser actually falls slower than you'd think. So with meh mobility and a tendency to get KO'd early, where's Paper Mario's upside? To explain, we need to get into his moveset and his huge moveset potential. And the crux of it is one of the biggest parts of his arsenal, the hammer. Hammers appear in some form in every Paper Mario game and are a major part of his fighting style in all of them but Super Paper Mario. His heavy use of a weapon is a huge contrast from regular Mario, who sticks to hand-to-hand combat. Paper Mario's hammer would be used in the majority of his A moves. This would be one of his strengths. Wielding a weapon gives him increased range and disjointed hitboxes on the attacks that use it. While it wouldn't have a ton of range, maybe roughly equivalent to the range on Toon Link's attacks, it'd give him more than the vanilla Mario has and make him less susceptible to getting outspaced. You could even pull some attacks directly from the games. His forward tilt could be the standard overhead swing, his down smash the spin smash / slap hammer technique, his neutral air a version of the front flip swing he does during a perfectly performed hammer attack in Color Splash, and his forward smash could be the power smash technique from the first two games, complete with the in-game charging sound effects when you're charging it. But Paper Mario doesn't rely on his hammer alone in battle. He gets a lot of mileage just from jumping on enemies. Between jumping boots, upgrades of those jumping boots, badges, stickers, and cards, you gain a lot of different ways in the series to hurt things by stomping on them. That can be worked into Paper Mario's moveset by having his non-hammer attacks rely heavily on kicks, and with a few other creative uses as well. His down air could be the spin jump from the first three games, although it's more of a ground pound in function, functioning like a stall and fall attack that hits anyone below you hard. Or how about his down throw, having him slam his opponent onto the ground and jump on them a few times rapidly like a power bounce or hop slipper? Or what if he had notably good follow-ups from landing a footstool jump? And of course, Paper Mario has a lot of other abilities that don't involve jumping or hammering. For example, His spin dash from the first Paper Mario would slot right in as his dash attack. His paper thin form from the Thousand Year Door where he turns to his side would work as a spot dodge and air dodge, and the paper tube form from the same game would be his roll. So, those of you who are die-hard Paper Mario fans might have noticed a glaring omission so far. The partner characters from the first 3 games are nowhere to be found. They're usually all over the place in a lot of Paper Mario movesets I've seen, but ultimately I decided to leave them out of this moveset. Hear me out. I know they're a big part of the battle system in the first 2 games and a major part of Paper Mario's repertoire in the third. You see, I wanted this moveset to be about Paper Mario himself and what he can do in battle. It just didn't feel right to have Paper Mario's moveset be about him summoning other characters to do the heavy lifting. It felt cluttered and impractical, especially when it came down to deciding who to use for special moves and who to leave out. And trying to make each custom special use a different partner just made the whole thing even more of a mess, not to mention stepping in on Palutena's gimmick. Ultimately, I decided that it'd be better to keep Paper Mario's concept focused on Paper Mario himself. I know, not exactly a popular opinion, but I promise it still works. And hey, even if they weren't a part of the moveset, the partners would get some form of representation if Paper Mario got into Smash. Trust me, it would happen. Most of them would show up as trophies at the minimum, maybe even a couple as assist trophies. The partners are a beloved part of the series' roots, and they could still be represented without having to be crammed into Paper Mario's moveset. So if we're not using the partners, what is there to use for Paper Mario specials? Actually, quite a bit. His neutral special would bring out the Hammer Throw badge from the first 2 games, or its counterpart Hurl Hammer from the 2 newest games. Either name works. Paper Mario would raise his hammer up over his shoulders, then throw it forward in an arc. It'd go about as high as a battlefield platform at its apex, and travel about 1/3 the length of Final Destination normally, but you could hold B before releasing it to increase the distance it goes to 2/3 of FD, as well as making it hit a little harder. The hammer itself could be the same one Paper Mario normally uses, or he could use a different one just for this attack. Depends on what would look better and how soon he could attack out of it, so that he wouldn't be suddenly pulling a second hammer out of nowhere. Hammer Throw would be a different take on the Fireball archetype, creating a projectile that doesn't deal a lot of damage, maybe 6 to 7%, but puts a hitbox in front of you to help cover your approaches. And due to it being thrown in an arc, you'd also be able to poke at opponents sitting in the air. Paper Mario's side special would be another recurring attack, the Shell Toss. From the standard move of the 2 Koopa Troopa partners in the first 2 games, to the Shell Stickers and Sticker Star, to the constant presence of Koopas as enemies throughout the series, Paper Mario's seen a lot of shells and kicked around most of them. For this move, he'd pull out an unoccupied Koopa shell out of hammer space, then drop it onto the ground and jump on it lightly to send it on its way. It'd be another Fireball type projectile that works differently than Hammer Throw, by traveling along the ground at a pace a little faster than the standard Mario Fireball and going about 3/4 the length of FD before disappearing. If it goes off a platform, it maintains its momentum while falling at about the fall speed of Paper Mario himself. Like with Hammer Throw, it wouldn't deal a ton of damage and wouldn't be able to zone opponents out, but the 2 moves combined would give Paper Mario a versatile offensive projectile game that would let him adapt how he approaches. I did consider giving Shell Toss the boomerang-like effect it has with the partner abilities in the first 2 Paper Mario games, but I decided against it. That would have made it more of a defensive zoning tool, and I want Paper Mario's neutral to be built more for offense. But I could see a custom variant of this having the boomerang effect. Maybe the shell could even change to look like Koopa's blue shell. For Paper Mario's recovery move, the Ultra Jump, which has him slowly compress himself and then spring upward. This move gets its name from being the signature technique of the Ultra Boots in the Thousand Year Door, and it's also Luigi's signature skill in Super Paper Mario. It's also called Spring Jump occasionally, but since Sonic's Up Special already has that name, I wanted something that stood out better. It'd be a charge and release move, kinda like Diddy's Rocket Barrel Boost, so the longer you hold B, the higher Paper Mario goes when you release. You'd also have some horizontal maneuverability during it to keep it from being completely linear. Ultra Jump would contrast quite a bit from Mario's Super Jump Punch. Where the latter is a quicker anti-air move in the Dragon Punch archetype, the former would have less offensive use due to its startup, but be better for recovering from a distance. So it actually took me a while to figure out what to do with Paper Mario's down special. I wanted to find one that felt interesting, gelled with his game plan, and still maintained his intended strengths and weaknesses. After a lot of deliberation, I found one: Dimensional Flip. Using it allows Paper Mario to escape harm and retaliate by slipping through the mysterious third dimension. Think of it sort of like Meta Knight's Dimensional Cake. I swear the names are just a coincidence. Taken from a special ability in Super Paper Mario, Dimensional Flip has Paper Mario flip into the near background just barely behind the plane everyone is fighting on, enough to put him out of reach of attack. Pressing a button while Paper Mario is flipped has him swing his hammer back into the plane of combat for a powerful hit. It'd be one more mix-up tool in Paper Mario's arsenal, a way to surprise opponents who overcommit or get too predictable. He'd turn a little darker when in the background to make it clear that he's out of the action, would stay locked in place while flipped, no moving around, and he'd flip back on his own after close to a second if you don't attack. And he'd go into free fall after using it in the air, so no using it to cheese out juggle attempts. You got his neutral air already to make that tricky anyway. And now we have Paper Mario's Final Smash. There's a lot to choose from when it comes to big, powerful finishing moves from the Paper Mario games. But one thing to remember is that Final Smashes tend to stay relevant, which is why several have been changed between Brawl and 4 to match moves from more recent games. With that in mind, I'd want Paper Mario's Final Smash to be the Fan. Thing summons have been a major part of the newer Paper Mario games, with their out-of-place appearances and how they're treated almost like forbidden eldritch artifacts despite just being real-world everyday objects. The Fan played a key role early in Sticker Star and is the first thing you find in Color Splash, placing it arguably at a position to be the go-to choice. With a smash ball broken and a press of the B button, Paper Mario would trap any opponent immediately in front of him and whisk them away to outer space to be blown into the screen by cosmic force winds for heavy damage. And that is what Paper Mario could bring to Smash. A facsimile of Mario from a world of paper whose powers and playstyle feel familiar in spirit yet fresh in design. Boasting less weight and mobility than the plumber himself, but better range and more surprises, he's a character from whom you never know what to expect, just like the spin-off series he comes from. Our next character is going to be one who gets talked about occasionally, but should probably be getting more attention due to their circumstances. After all, Sakurai is a big fan of their home series. Think about it for a while. It's probably not your first guess. Until then, sort your badges, shuffle your cards, and arrange your sticker album, and keep a lookout for that last damn star piece. See you next time.